Page 1. Literary terms related to drama. Different types of drama. Tragedy. Greek tragoidia, tragoidia, quote, goat, G-O-A-T, song, unquote. The term tragedy probably refers to an ancient totemic ritual, the sacrifice of a goat, associated Dionysius, the god of the fields and vineyards. In course of time, contest in the writing of tragedies came to be held as part of the ceremonies of the great Dionysia at Athens, the springtime festival of the death and resurrection of the god. From these contests developed Greek tragedy and later a larger body of tragic dramas. Para. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, in his Poeticus, defines tragedy as an imitation of an action, quote, of high importance, comma, complete and of some amplitude, unquote, stop. It involves a hero of noble stature whose fortunes are reversed as a result of a weakness, bracket, or overweening quality in his nature, bracket closed, which Aristotle calls hamartia, H-A-M-A-R-T-I-A, which is translated in English as error of judgment. Para. In the Middle Ages, tragedy was the fall of princes. In the Renaissance England, Elizabethan period, the Roman dramatist and philosopher introduced the revenge tragedy, a tragedy of blood. Shakespeare wrote his great tragedies, Othello, Hamlet, Macbeth, and King Lear, which attempt psychological studies of the heroes in particular situations. Para. Now, any serious drama ending in disaster is called a tragedy. Modern realistic tragedy treats the life of common men in their ordinary circumstances. Revenge tragedy. Revenge tragedy is a form of tragedy initiated by the Roman tragedian Seneca and made popular in England by Thomas Kyd in his Spanish tragedy. The common theme is the revenge of a father or a son for the murder committed by a villain. There are sensational elements like the appearance of the ghost, supernaturalism, murders, madness, macabre elements, and morbidity of the hero. The hero hesitates to take revenge and is tormented by questions about justice, etc. Shakespeare's Hamlet is a great revenge play in which the son is called upon to take revenge on the murder of his father. The ghost of father directs him to take the revenge. In the Spanish tragedy, father is asked to take revenge on the murder of his son. Both the heroes cannot sweep to the action. Many other revenge tragedies were written in the Elizabethan time, as for example Marston's Marston', Antonio and Mellida, Webster's The Duchess of Malfi. Revenge tragedies were written in Greece, as for example Medea of Eurytides, who takes revenge on her husband by killing her children. Agamemnon of Aeschylus is a revenge tragedy. His wife, Clytemnestra, takes revenge on her husband for killing her daughter, Iphigema, Iphigima. Heroic tragedy or heroic play. Heroic tragedy or heroic play is a type of drama which was popular in the Restoration period. Usually written in heroic couplets, it was a serious play, though it might have a happy ending. Page 2. In a typical heroic play, there was a conflict between love and honor. The hero, a model of courage, virtue, and love, is forced to choose between the demands of duty and love. The plays are generally full of magnificent speeches. The hero is even led to the conquest of an empire ruled by the father of his lover. The heroine's rival is a passionate princess of dubious virtue, and the hero's rival is a villain. Thus, heroic play presents a noble hero or heroine in a situation in which their passionate love conflicts with the demands of honor and the hero's patriotic duty. Dryden's tyrannic love, the conquest of Granada, the Indian emperor are examples of this genre. Dryden adapted Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra into heroic formula. Melodrama. Melodrama etymologically means mellows song plus drama. There was no distinction between opera and melodrama. Originally, the term was applied in the European theatre to scenes of mime accompanied by music. But in course of time, melodrama came to mean sensational drama. In the 19th century England, melodrama flourished in a variety of plays which ranged in subject from the supernatural to domestic life. There are disappearing skeletons, conjuring wizards, horrid demons, and ghosts thrill the audience. Tragedies are rooted in melodrama. Even in Shakespeare's tragedies or Greek tragedies, supernatural elements, strong external action, declamatory speeches preponderate. But these tragedies are at the same time profound studies of characters and have deeper suggestions. Among the successes of Shakespeare, there are macabre elements like skeletons of dead man, the dance of madman, and morbid reflections on life, as in plays of Webster, Tourneur, Ford, etc. There are melodramas dealing with the evils of drunkenness, the cruelties of a foreclosed mortgage, or the machinations of a fiendish murderer. Such well-known plays as Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and 10 Nights in a Barroom are popular melodramas of the day. Comedy. Comedy at first was a dramatic invective, possibly a personal abuse in the form of dialogue. Gradually it is depersonalized into a picture of the ridiculous. Classical comedy was satiric. Ridicule was the main weapon for satirizing men and manners. Aristophanes excelled in the comedy personal invectives, but later comedians dramatized the ludicrous in place of indulging in personal abuse. Comedy excites laughter by exposing the offenders against decorum or standards of behavior to ridicule. It generally selects some eccentricities or oddities of characters and draw fun out of exaggerated description of these traits. We are delighted to see persons acting stupidly, oddly, or recklessly with relative impunity. There are theories of Meredith Bergson about the source of laughter in a comedy. Whatever may be the theories, laughter in a comedy is caused by the contrast between the appearance and reality, which causes absurdity of behavior or amusing situations. We may laugh at a comic character in detachment or in scorn. Comedy of humors. There are varieties of comedy. Ben Jonson in the Elizabethan time evolved the quote, comedy of humors, unquote. The concept of humors is derived from a traditional theory of physiology, Phisiology. Will it be physiology? In which the state of health and by extension the state of mind or of character, page 3, depended on a balance among 4 elemental fluids, black and yellow bile, blood and phlegm, phlegm. This concept was developed into a theory of comedy in which a character who has excess of any of these fluids becomes an unbalanced character, and such a character provides scope for satiric laughter. Ben Jonson's play Every Man in His Humour, 1598, illustrates this type of comedy. He selects one of the humours in a character, and by exaggerating the eccentricities, he produces the comic effect. Thus, Kitely's jealousy makes him act foolishly. Bobadil is the braggart soldier. Old Know-well is guided by his too much anxiety for his son. The follies of a braggart soldier, of a tyrannical father, of a jealous husband are put before us. They are mocked through exaggerations, and we are amused. Through these characters, contemporary society is imaged. Later comedians like Congreve, Sheridan developed what is known as comedy of manners, but this comedy is influenced by Jonson's comedy of humours. Comedy of manners. Comedy of manners, MANNERS, is successfully practiced by the comedians of the Restoration period. Etheridge, ETHEREGE, Congreve, Farquhar, etc. This type was carried on by such playwrights as Goldsmith, Sheridan, Oscar Wilde, etc. The comedy of manners also presented humor characters, that is, characters with certain particular eccentricities. It is called comedy of manners because it presented the superficial habits and manners of a section of the society. The elegant aristocracy with their fashionable vices, intrigues and glamour of polished behavior. The manners displayed were the affections and artificialities of the so-called fine society. In these comedies there are humor characters, amusing situations and witty dialogues. Intrigues are amusingly presented. As for example, in the School for Scandal, there are scandals, intrigues of Joseph Surface, Lady Sneerwell, but these are presented in a light-hearted and detached manner, which excites laughter rather than annoyance and anger. Romantic comedy. Romantic comedy was introduced in the Elizabethan time by Lyly, Lyly, within bracket, Endymion, Endymion, Green, Green, within bracket, Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, Bungay, bracket closed, and Peel, Peele, bracket, the arraignment, Arraignment of Paris, bracket closed, stop. But this was perfected by Shakespeare in his As You Like It, Twelfth Night, and Much Ado About Nothing. This type of comedy is totally different from classical comedy, which was followed by Ben Jonson, which is basically satiric and critical and conservative. Shakespeare in his romantic comedy creates a climate of romance. Love, romantic love, is the principal theme of Shakespeare's comedies. But romantic love alone cannot make a comedy. Comedy must amuse. In Shakespeare's comedy, the seriousness of love is relieved by the generosity of laughter, and the irresponsibility of laughter by the seriousness of love. Serious and sincere love is presented in a light-hearted, mocking manner. The mock courtship of Rosalind in the male attire and lovesick Orlando satisfies both the romantic and comic purposes. Shakespeare creates comic situations through mistaken identities, disguises and deceptions. Printing mistake. Noble characters and low characters exist side by side. Moreover, there is a variety of episodes which provide the realistic and satirical elements by way of contrast with the main plot. Page 4. The gulling of Malvolio in Twelfth Night is an example in point. The sentimental exaggeration of Silvius and Phoebe gives the comic contrast to the serious love of Orlando and Rosalind, As You Like It. Sentimental comedy. Sentimental comedy arose in the 18th century as a Puritan reaction to the comedy of manners of the Restoration period, which was thought to be obscene and immoral. The comedies of Colley Cibber, Colley Cibber, and Steele, Steele, may be taken as inaugurating the dawn of sensibility. In their comedies, there was conventional morality and sentimentality in place of grossness of the Restoration comedy. These dramatists dealt with the problems of conduct, family, marriage. In place of wit and mirth, there are pathetic and moral elements. Characters were not true to life and situations were often unreal. Tormenting heroes and sobbing heroines and wicked villains were the stock characters of these plays. The dramatists aimed at preaching moral lessons by restoring suffering innocent virtue to happiness and converting rogues into good characters. Thus the comic spirit is defeated in these plays. These plays served the false morality of the middle class. Some of the notable plays of this type are The Conscious Lovers by Steele, Love's Last Shaft by Cibber, West Indian by Cumberland. Comedy of Ideas. Bernard Shaw popularized a new type of comedy. Ibsen, the Norwegian dramatist, dealt with social problems in his plays, and his plays were tragic. Nora's leaving her husband's house in a doll's house as a tragic note. Bernard Shaw follows Ibsen in discussing social problems in his plays, but his method is comic. Shaw deals with such serious problems as prostitution, slums, marriage, Mrs. Warren's profession, widowers' houses, getting married, in a comic spirit. He shatters romantic conceptions of love, marriage, and war in such dramas as Arms and the Man, Candida, Major Barbara, but he is always amusing and witty. He makes the audience laugh by the comic exposure of the serious problems, but he at the same time makes them think. He carries on the discussion of serious issues in witty dialogues. He has discussed the profound philosophical ideas of creative evolution in the manner of hilarious fantasy. Farce. Farce, F-A-R-C-E, comes from Latin farcire, F-A-R-C-I-R-E, or to stuff, S-T-U-F-F. Originally, farces were scenes of buffoonery inserted in a liturgical play, as quarrel between Noah and his wife in Noah's Ark. The word now refers to any play which evokes laughter by such devices as crude comic scenes, physical buffoonery, rough wit, and creation of ridiculous situations and characters. Farce creates fun for the sake of laughter, but in a comedy, fun is created out of the interplay of characters and situations. Comedy has farce, but is not a farce, just as tragedy has melodrama, but is not a melodrama. Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors is a farce, but Twelfth Night, which is also based on mistaken identities, is a comedy. Brandon Thomas's Charlie's Aunt is a farce, but Shakespeare's The Taming, T-A-M-I-N-G, of the Shrew, S-H-R-E-W, or Sheridan's The School for Scandal are comedies, though there are farcical elements. Domestic tragedy. Domestic tragedy is a serious play, generally realistic in style. Its protagonist is drawn from the lower or middle classes, and its action is concerned with personal or domestic matters rather than with high politics. Page 5. The term has been applied to such plays as Lillies, Lilli', The London Merchant, or Hebbel', Maria Magdalena. It is often limited to the Elizabethan domestic tragedy, which includes such plays as Arden of Feversham, A Warning for Fair Women, and A Woman Killed with Kindness. Bourgeois, Bourgeoisie, drama, same as domestic tragedy, a modern realistic dealing with middle-class characters. Droll, Droll. Droll is a short comic piece often combined with dancing. It is performed most often at fairs during the Commonwealth in England, 1649-60, when government closed down the theatres and forbidden full-length plays. Tragicomedy. Tragicomedy is a play in which the action, though apparently leading to a catastrophe, is reversed to bring about a happy ending. The Merchant of Venice may be called tragicomedy because the trial scene has the tragic potentiality for Antony, but it is thwarted by the arguments of Portia, and the play has a happy ending. Para. The typical tragicomedy concerns noble characters involved in improbable situations. Love, frequently seen as a contrast of the pure and the sensual, is the central motive of the elaborate plot in which both hero and heroine are rescued from imminent disaster so that the play ends happily. Shakespeare's last plays, Cymbeline, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, may be called tragic-comic romances. In The Tempest there are conspiracies, sufferings, and torments of love, but all these are resolved by Prospero's magic. High comedy. High comedy is a term broadly applied to satiric comedy whose appeal is primarily intellectual. High comedy is intellectual. In general, it is graceful, witty, and urbane. George Meredith wrote, Cologne quote, "The laughter of comedy is impersonal and of unrivaled politeness, comma, nearer a smile, dash, often no more than a smile, stop. It laughs through the mind, comma, for the mind directs it, dot, dot, dot. The test of true comedy is that it shall awaken thoughtful laughter, stop," unquote. The idea of comedy and the use of comic spirit. The witty dialogues in Shakespeare's Marceau about nothing, in Congreve's The Way of the World, proviso scene, and the dialogues in Shaw's plays awaken the intellectual awareness. The audience laugh and at the same thing. And at the same time think. Printing mistake. Low comedy. Low comedy is farce. The coarse comic elements like buffoonery, horseplay, slapstick are employed to arouse belly laughter. In medieval miracle plays, low comedy appeared as added stage business. The character of Vice, for example, often the object of practical jokes, himself engaged in clownish behavior to relieve the seriousness of the play. The Elizabethan playwrights inherited the traditions of medieval drama. In Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor, for instance, Falstaff, getting into a basket to hide from a suspicious husband, has, quote, foul linen, unquote, piled stop him. In The Tempest, Trincles, Trinculs, takes shelter into Caliban's gabardine to protect himself from rains and storms. Next, page 6, mime.